Is Dr. Kosteen, and I am excited to talk about a LGBT history and myth character today who I've been teaching about for a long time in an LGBT history and myth class that I helped develop at Antioch University, Los Angeles in the LGBT specialization. And this class is a full quarter of different LGBT history, who is one of my favorite characters of all time. She's more mythic than historical, and she was around the time of 2000 to 1600 BC. We're not entirely clear. And she was a Mesopotamian goddess. And she actually is the goddess that was in the Old Testament before she was kicked out and Eve was put in. Now, she is an relevant character because she was starting what we call the goddess cultures and infiltrate their new ideology of a male god and taking out the belief system of a goddess, a matriarchal goddess that was the divine, was part of the divine piece. My favorite characters of a piece of everybody. So Lilith actually is a fabulous goddess that you're going to see a picture of her in a few moments. And she has talons, and she has lions by her feet, and she had wings, and she could fly. So in this myth that was not put in the Old Testament, but was originally meant to be, was God came to her and said, you know, you're going to marry. Interpreted as, first of all, she was a goddess that represents the culture of the time, where women were independent and could make their own decisions and were not oppressed and dominated by the patriarchal culture or the heteronormative culture. And that's the way the goddess cultures were that we know of today. So then it also represents what the patriarchy did as it came in, like, no, you're not, and they would fly off and do their own thing. So she definitely represents that sort of fight that was going on culturally at the time as the patriarchy took over the goddess mentality. The second component that I really like to think about it from a lesbian lens perspective is that here she was, God is like off, and there's something very lesbianic about it. So when I teach about her in the class, we talk about it from that perspective because it's so important for us to see our history in myth and see ourselves in our history, because we're never given that permission. We're never given that lens unless we start looking at it for ourselves. All history books and all history lessons have been interpreted by a heterosexual. LGBT people have always existed since the beginning of time. We can start seeing ourselves in these different kind of myths, and Lilith is a really important one to look at. Thank you. Hi, welcome to Dr. Kosteen's commentary. The last component of the Lilith myth is the Adam. That's so alarming is that she was the one that talked with the devil and the apple, wanting to get information, and so it was the downfall of mankind, but that was happened by Eve's decision. Let me say that one more time. So Eve's decision, when she decided to talk to the snake, who was the devil in disguise, and she decided to since then, and we have been bearing that burden since then. Which has continued to perpetuate this very misogynistic and damaging idea on women in Western culture that we are the problem, we're not as good as men, we're not as smart, all of these things that many of us as women have believed. So I really think it's important to deconstruct this myth, understand its origins, understand exactly what it's done to women psychologically, and it is a component of the misogyny that we all are experiencing even to this day, though things are better, and that it also is very much a part of homophobia and lesbian phobia and the phobias within the LGBT community. There is misogyny running throughout that, and we'll get to that at another time. Thank you for listening.